Start, I want to first say thank you to the Honorable Jose Preciado and South Bay Forum for joining me in co-hosting this community budget workshop. I am obviously very grateful to the voters of District 1 for the opportunity to serve. But more importantly, I think had the privilege of serving the last 5 months, and my goal has always been to create institutional change and really work together to make sure that our communities have the resources that they need so that they can not only survive but thrive. And so part of that change includes having a county budget that is transparent. I've always said that budgets are a reflection of our community's values and properties. And so I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Jose first so that he can welcome everybody, and then we'll go from there. And there you go.
Good evening, and thank you, Supervisor Vargas, for the great privilege of being part of your community engagement activity. In these past 5 months, we've seen an extraordinary turnaround and engagement with many of us who, for many reasons, may have not had direct access, and certainly not. This is the first time I can remember being part of the presentation of the annual budget, the awesome responsibility that the county has in administering and prioritizing how we invest public resources. And we really appreciate that, in fact, you are helping us work together, collaborating with us in building what you so proudly announced to everyone of building healthier and stronger communities. With that, all of us, I've known Supervisor Vargas for the past 20+ years. This is who she is. She's an engaged community citizen. She's an engaged partner. She's consultative, transparent. And I think we have all seen the opportunity we all have in this change, this title change of the county as a place that we can call it now, the People's County. And without further ado, I really appreciate the opportunity to invite our South Bay Forum members and other members of the public to be engaged here with you. And Supervisor, if you could start us off, it's my great pleasure to welcome Supervisor Vargas to a co-hosted forum of the county budget. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you so much for that. Jose, I really appreciate it. I appreciate the opportunity to work with all of you. And I really, like I said, I want to thank South Bay Forum for this opportunity. I know that you have your monthly meeting, and this is a perfect venue for us to invite folks to come and join us. And so today I am excited to have I think so many wonderful people from the County of San Diego who have just been fantastic in helping us making sure that everybody is aware of what's happening and are able to answer questions. And so first and foremost, I want to thank our Chief Administrator Officer, Helen Robbins Meyer, and the Assistant Chief Administrator Officer, Michael Wu, for joining us tonight. I think you're here. I don't know if I can see you, but I know you're here somewhere.
I'm here. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you. Thank you
as well.
Thank you, Michael, and thank you, Helen. It is critical, I think, that our constituents understand the investments that are being made in their communities, and then we create spaces, to make sure that they're providing input. And I think, the county plays such a critical role in people's lives every day. And so with that, I think, everyone knows that the mission of the County of San Diego is to efficiently provide public services that build strong, sustainable communities. And so for too long, our communities, really, I think, needed to be engaged in this process. So I am excited. There's a proposed 2022 county budget of $7 billion. And I think county staff is ready to hear from you firsthand. And so I am going to turn it over to our first, to our leader in the budget world, Ebony Shelton, our San Diego County's Deputy Chief Administrative Officer, Chief Financial Officer, who's going to provide us with a general overview of the county's budget. And we were going to have various presentations, so please write your questions down or add them on the Q&A function of this webinar, and we will make sure that those questions are answered. So I'm going to turn it over to Ebony, and Ebony, thank you for doing such a fantastic job and for being here and sharing your wisdom and everybody. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Supervisor or Vice Chair Vargas, for your leadership in bringing everyone together this evening. It's definitely a pleasure to talk with you all about something that's very near and dear to all of our hearts here, the budget. So today I'm going to start out with you all, give just the team a second to bring the presentation up. If we can go to the next slide, please, to just cover the agenda. We're going to talk a little bit about the budget process in and of itself. It takes a lot, as you might imagine, to bring together a $7 billion operating budget. We'll talk about what the county does and the funding sources that help to support operations here at the county. And then we'll take a closer look at the fiscal year 21-22 recommended budget, taking a few different views of it by group, by program, looking at staffing levels, and then we'll talk about general purpose revenue and how that's been allocated. We'll end, or I'll conclude with a brief overview for you all in terms of next steps on budget hearings, which begin next week. And then you'll have an opportunity to hear from my colleagues here on each of the business groups in their respective budgets and highlights there. So we can go to the next slide, please. So the budget process for this organization, as you might imagine, is very dynamic. And I have to say that the budget is really an iterative process. Throughout the year, we're consistently thinking about and moving through some phase of the budget planning and development activities. It's not something that we just build and put on the shelf and pull off next year. It's something that we're constantly looking to and bringing in inputs from community groups like yours, as well as other stakeholders. It's a very dynamic planning environment. This slide here is a visual depiction that talks about the various inputs that we take into consideration as we're moving through the planning process, whether that's priorities of the board, feedback from your community, and that's something that we take into consideration at all levels of planning, whether it's looking long-term at the strategic plan and our 5-year financial forecast, or looking shorter term at the 2-year operational plan, which is what we're really going to be focused on in terms of our discussions here today. And we can move to the next slide, please. So just to kind of start out with a discussion about what the county does, for some individuals, it may be difficult to distinguish between what the county does versus what our local cities do. So this slide here tries to break out the responsibilities of the county into 3 major groups. Here we see that the county is responsible for executing state programs. And what this really means is that the county is acting on behalf of the state, where the state has delegated its responsibilities to the county to actually execute its programs, and then it provides funding to do so. And in some cases, it tells you exactly how to do that. There are strings attached. And those are examples of the programs that are primarily in the Health and Human Services Agency, where we see that concentrated. Then we also have regional services, meaning that we provide services to the entire region. Whether you're residing within an incorporated city or in an unincorporated area, there are services that we provide to the entire region. So these are certain services like detention facilities and operating jails, collecting taxes, conducting elections, and so on. And you see some examples of those here in that regional services category. And then the final bucket, the third bucket, is services that we provide to the unincorporated area of the county. So if you don't live in an incorporated city, then these are basic government municipal services that you'd be relying upon, like law enforcement, libraries, parks, and land use activities. So with that as a backdrop, we'll go ahead and move on to the next slide, please, to talk about where the resources come from that support those core services. So we talked a little bit about the fact that we act as an agent for the state. So that's an example of what we refer to as program revenue. So the revenues that the state, for example, provides to us, and in some cases, federal funding as well, for other certain services that are mandated, we refer to those as program revenues. There are other examples of that. These are revenues that usually have strings attached. We call them other people's money, where we get those resources to provide a certain set of services, and those resources can't be redirected to do other activities. They're not discretionary in nature, if you will. The next category is what we refer to as general purpose revenue. This is, in fact, the discretionary revenue that the board has complete discretion and control over how to utilize and how to allocate. These are derived primarily of property tax revenues, and they are used primarily to support those regional law enforcement activities and general government activities that we provide to the unincorporated area. This is the bulk of property tax revenues that is primarily comprised rather of property tax revenues. And we'll talk a little bit more about general purpose revenues and how they're allocated, a visual depiction of that in the next few slides. And then the final category of funding that we have available to us is what we refer to as use of fund balance or one-time revenue that we use to help support one-time activities in the county. We don't use these to support ongoing activities because they would create structural issues for the county and its budget. So we're very careful with how we use one-time activities to ensure that we don't create those structural issues where when they go away effectively, there will be a problem with continuing the service. Next slide, please. So with that as backdrop, we're going to transition now and talk about the 21-22 budget. And I'm going to start out just with the theme and where we're at overall in terms of the strategy moving forward with this budget. So you've heard comments about the change that's underway here with the county and our new board and the new leadership and direction that we're seeing set forward. And this budget is really embracing that and trying to advance the organization towards those major themes. We're focused on racial equity, social and environmental justice, and sustainability, and using that as our foundation to advance decisions that are data-driven and focused on being more transparent and engaging with events like tonight. Next, we're going to talk about the total budget by group. We can go to the next slide, please. So this is a snapshot of the total budget by business group, and it compares a couple of years for you to give you some history, with the blue bars representing the upcoming budget that's being recommended for fiscal year 21-22. You can see that the overall budget is growing. It's actually $7 billion. This is an increase of $480 million or 7% from the current budget. And that growth is concentrated in being driven by three major categories, which is really continuing the region's effort to lead the COVID response with our T3 strategy, investments in our workforce, and restarting our capital program. So those are the three major drivers that are driving our budget here. Moving on to the next slide. This is a visual depiction of the county's budget by program. So the previous slide that we looked at was a breakdown of the budget by business group. This provides a little bit more granularity on the structure of the budget. And you can see here that the largest program within the county is the Behavioral Health Services Program, followed by non-detention activities within the Sheriff's Department. I'll note that this particular slide and this data set is available in the county's open budget portal. If you haven't had an opportunity to visit that portal, it's really cool. I think you'll find some really interesting data there. And you can drill down and get more detail on these programs, including information on funding sources and staffing levels, et cetera. With that, let's move on to the next slide, please. This is a similar depiction of the first chart that we reviewed where we're looking at information by business group. On this slide, we're looking at staffing levels by business group. Overall, the county staffing is increasing by 660 FTEs when adjusted to exclude the transition of the Air Pollution Control District, which is now an independent agency. With that adjustment to exclude those positions, or including that change rather, we're at a net of 496 FTEs. And those changes are really being concentrated in two major areas, with about half of that change represented as changes to help to support our safety net programs, and you're going to hear some more about that this evening. And additional changes and investments that are being made in public safety to help with detention support, such as the investment in nurses, in mental health staff, but also to provide additional resources for our public defense partners. And you'll hear about more of that this evening when we have Holly present on the public safety group. So we can go to the next slide, please. So this next slide here is just a little bit more detail about general purpose revenue. So we talked earlier about this being the Board of Supervisors' discretionary source of revenue that they make determinations on how to support versus, again, program revenue, which comes to us with strings attached in terms of how we spend it. And you can see here that the majority, or at least about 58% of the general purpose revenue is allocated to the public safety group.
يتم إعطاؤها للخدمات التي تعنى بالأمن.
excuse me, and that's a reflection of the relationship between the state and the county, whereas you see a smaller allocation to the Health and Human Services Agency, and that's reflective of the fact that the Health and Human Services Agency is supported primarily by program revenue, whereas public safety is a local responsibility that relies on discretionary revenues generated here locally. Next slide, please. Excuse me. So I'll conclude before moving on to our next presenter with just an overview here of the next steps on the budget process. So we mentioned when we started that budget hearings begin next week. We have 2 sessions scheduled. The first one is on June 14th at 9 a.m. And then we also have an evening hearing scheduled for the 16th, which is Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. You have the opportunity to provide your feedback and testimony during the public hearings themselves, but you're also welcome to provide your feedback in writing in the event that these dates don't necessarily work for your particular calendar. And you can provide that feedback through our e-comment system by visiting the budget web portal. The last day to file formal comments or testimony on the budget is June 23rd at 5 p.m. So you'll want to make sure that you get your feedback in before that time. The actual recommended budget reflecting any changes or revisions that are made to the budget between now and prior to adoption will be available to the public on June 25th on our budget portal. And we'll have final deliberations with our Board of Supervisors to take action to adopt the budget on June 29th at 2 p.m. So with that, I'll pass the presentation over to Holly Porter to go over the public safety group.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here and for your interest in learning about the county budget and providing input to us. San Diego County continues to be one of the safest in the nation. The public safety group supports criminal justice activities in San Diego County, coordinates with agencies, and receives community input to deliver high-quality programs and services. The 9 departments of the public safety group collectively work to advance the county's vision of a region that's building better health, living safely, and thriving. Next slide. Over the past year, the public safety group team made significant progress in the areas of justice system reform, supporting youth success, and emergency preparedness and response. Continuing justice system reform is key to addressing racial and social equity. Several collaborative courts continue to coordinate treatment and support participant success, and justice and behavioral health partners launched a felony mental health diversion program. The district attorney's office and the sheriff's department also led the way in de-escalation training for law enforcement personnel. Additionally, the district attorney and probation department worked hard to implement AB 1950. That's a bill that reduced the length of probation for thousands of county residents. Supporting youth success and positive youth outcomes has also been a focus area for us. The most visible example of this commitment is phase 1 of the new youth transition campus in Kearney Mesa, which will be complete this fall and incorporates design changes that reflect a rehabilitative approach for youth in custody. Probation has been working with community members, behavioral health, education, and justice partners to implement SB 823. That's juvenile justice realignment. As of July 1st, probation will be ready to care for specific youth locally and no longer send them to state detention facilities. In addition, the Sheriff's Department has a new 7,000 square foot RESPECT project that will serve between 10 to 30 at-risk youth each day in San Marcos beginning on June 15th. The new campus features an activity area, a recording studio, classrooms, a conference room for guest speakers, and an outdoor gym. Another positive, wildfire preparedness, emergency readiness, and response were expanded upon last year as the county continues to invest in disaster readiness. Registration in the Alert San Diego program increased by 8% last year, and the new text to 911 service launched by the Sheriff's Department in January links emergency services in the county and improves safety for all county residents. The evolution of county fire and the creation of the Fire Protection District continues our commitment to strengthen fire and emergency response capabilities in the unincorporated area. and County Fire administered thousands of vaccines to rural areas during the pandemic as part of Operation Collaboration. As we share these examples of progress and adaptability, we are also committed to continuous improvement and welcome the focus on racial and social equity. Next slide. The Public Safety Group budget increases by $147.1 million or 7.2% from fiscal year 2020-2021. This increase is primarily related to negotiated salary and benefit increases and required retirement contributions across departments, and the net addition of 273 staff years. The change in staffing includes a reduction of 30 vacant and unfunded positions in the Department of Child Support Services. The budget includes increases in activities supported by sales tax-based revenues, such as Prop 172 and 2011 public safety realignment. Next, I'll share some of the key budget changes. Here are the significant budget changes in the Public Safety Group. The District Attorney is adding staff to support initiatives such as One Safe Place, North County Family Justice Center, the Juvenile Diversion Initiative, and Workplace Justice. To enhance medical and mental health throughout the jail system, 141 positions are added in the Sheriff's Department. 45 of those health positions will be assigned to the renovated Rock Mountain Detention Facility. The addition of 191 positions assigned to Rock Mountain will support 3 housing units and additional medical care space. Activating this space will facilitate critical repairs to other detention facilities and support jail system compliance with state capacity requirements. The Public Defender is increasing by 28 positions to address increasing case activities, to link clients with behavioral health and housing services, to support the successful Fresh Start program, and to consult on immigration implications for clients with criminal cases. Medical Examiner is adding 3 positions to meet pathologist caseload ratios as required by their accreditation agency and to support an increase in workload. Other significant budget increases support free communication services for inmates and youth in custody in the Sheriff's Department and probation, enforcement related to unlicensed cannabis operations in the Sheriff's Department, and 2 positions in probation for a public service program funded by the Department of Public Works. Although not shown here, budgets remain flat for both departments of the Office of Emergency Services and the Department of Child Support Services. And the Department of Animal Services includes an increase of $400,000 to purchase a mobile unit, which will provide access to animal services in historically underserved communities in the unincorporated area. Next slide. Expanding healthcare and mental health services in our jails is a key focus area of justice system reform in the proposed budget. Increases in the Fresh Start program and Defense Transition Unit with the Public Defender represent the county's commitment to reducing recidivism, connecting justice-involved individuals with rehabilitative services, and assisting individuals who qualify with clearing their records. The District Attorney's Office will be spearheading the opening of the North County Justice Center, where trauma victims and their families will receive services and support. And probation is launching a transitional age youth supervision model focusing on the unique developmental needs of young adults, including services such as housing and employment assistance to promote successful outcomes. To support the best outcomes for youth, the expansion of diversion and transformed facilities will support youth success. For all residents, the Office of Emergency Services will be launching a new earthquake early warning as part of their emergency mobile application later this summer. Public safety capital improvement projects for the upcoming fiscal year include $75 million for the next phases of the Youth Transition Campus, $18 million for the construction of the East Otay Mesa Fire Station, and $10 million for a consolidated animal shelter in East County. Each of these programs and projects represents a major investment in the community with the goal of improving youth outcomes, addressing the needs of vulnerable populations, reducing recidivism, and improving emergency readiness and response. With a community that's focused on criminal justice system reform and equity, we see opportunities to listen, to learn, and where appropriate to change. The public safety group departments are committed to safety, security, and protection for all, to identify and addressing barriers to equity and inclusion in our programs. We're also working in partnership with the Health and Human Services Agency to expand options for care. At this time, I'll turn the presentation over to Nick Macchione of the Health and Human Services Agency. Thank you.
Thank you, Holly, and good evening, Vice Chair Vargas and everyone who's joining us on this virtual town hall for budget. I'm happy to be here with you virtually and give you a high-level overview of the Health and Human Service Agency's budget. The Health and Human Service Agency is an integrated agency that provides health, housing, and human services through a very robust and collaborative service network for really all 3.3 million San Diegan County residents. Our mission is to empower all San Diegans to live a healthier, safer, and more self-sufficient lives by delivering essential services in our county. And we actively pursue what we call the Live Well San Diego vision, where we actively collaborate with our residents, our community and business partners so we can achieve health, safety, and thriving lives. Now, the agency is one of 4 county groups that represents nearly 40% of the county's total budget with its broad-reaching, essential safety net services, including aging and dependent services, behavioral health services, child and family strengthening services, affordable housing, and helping our homeless, medical care services, public health, self-sufficiency, and veteran services, and many more. And when the COVID-19 pandemic thrust upon us all in 2020, it created especially unique challenges for a large regional safety net provider such as our agency. And I'm proud to say that our county team, the entire county team, not only overcame, but found their way to persevere and innovate throughout, working closely with our Board of Supervisors, which Chair Vargas was the co-chair with our Chair, Fletcher, on the COVID subcommittee, and our community partners, many of our community partners are across the entire county. On the next slide, I'm going to touch upon just a few of the major highlights and accomplishments for the Health and Human Service Agency during this past fiscal year. First and foremost, our agency, in partnership with our fellow county groups, led the county's COVID-19 pandemic response and did so while maintaining safety net services to the region's most vulnerable. By leveraging the infrastructure developed through the COVID-19 test, trace, and treat strategy, which we call T3, we created a comprehensive vaccination program, one that proved so effective that we have led the pack among Southern California counties in a per capita vaccination rates. And thanks to the leadership of Vice Chair Vargas, we developed innovative programs like Project Save that led to nearly 99% of all 65 years and older in South Bay that have been vaccinated. And if that's not startling enough, that nearly 79% of the entire South Bay population, age 12 and older, has been vaccinated with at least 1 dose. And that is the leading part of our entire county. Now, we still have a lot more work to do, and we're doing everything we can to help the rest of our entire county, which is faring well, and trying to catch up to South Bay, ensuring that we're vaccinating those that still have not been vaccinated. And during the same time, we have used a health equity approach and data to amplify our efforts to support San Diego's most vulnerable individuals. Now, our county staff coordinated the delivery of more than 4 million meals to vulnerable seniors who initially found their lives scrambled by the stay-at-home orders and who later were able to count on nutritious meal deliveries as the pandemic reached its peak late in the year. We knew that with the unpredictability of the pandemic and the social isolation, that mental health crisis would peak. And this is why we pushed forward with advancements in our behavioral health continuum of care model with the addition of crisis stabilization units, behavioral health hubs, mobile crisis response teams, and telehealth. Our housing team continued to serve over 10,000 low-income households through our Housing Choice Voucher Program, Section 8, and also provided rental assistance to 650 formerly homeless veterans households through our Veterans Affairs supportive housing throughout the year. Additionally, the county's Innovative Housing Trust Fund continued to assist in addressing the affordable housing shortage that we have. And we expect there to be about 1,300 more affordable housing units in 16 communities. During this time, the agency's public assistance team ensured that more than 1 million children, adults, and seniors were connected to federal and state benefits to help meet basic needs. Needs like access to healthcare through Medi-Cal, or access to food through CalFresh, or cash assistance for living expenses. With our family resource centers operating with minimal staff during the pandemic, we turned to technology-based solutions and increased response times to callers in need, leading to record levels of eligibility services and helping San Diegans. Now, transitioning to some budget numbers. On this slide, we have the agency's budget by department. Behavioral Health Services in light blue on the top remains our largest department budgetarily, followed by self-sufficiency services at the bottom, where our main safety net assistance programs like CalFresh, CalWorks, and Medi-Cal reside. The agency's budget is proposed to go up by over $211 million for a recommended budget of $2.7 billion annually, our largest budget to date, with an increase of 311 staff positions. Now I'll review some of these increases in the incoming slides. Our budget priorities first include protecting the public's health with our continued COVID-19 pandemic response and our other public health threats like HIV and TB and hepatitis. Also important is children and families and seniors and vulnerable adults, behavioral health service delivery and public health infrastructure, homelessness, and affordable housing, just to name a few. And here we have the total proposed budgetary increases by each of those priority areas. These major areas of investments drive our increase of the $211 million. And as I mentioned, we're increasing by 311 staff years. We're addressing increasing caseloads, for example, with the staff years and additional revenue for safety net programs, including cash and food assistance, such as Medi-Cal, in-home support services, and our adult protection services. We're also bolstering several priority areas with staffing, including behavioral health and public health and child welfare services. Also, the addition of 19 positions supporting efforts to address homelessness that will be part of a new Department of Equitable Communities and Homeless Solutions. And our new department on the Equitable Communities and Homeless Solutions is also stood up budgetarily in the next iteration of our budget. We'll focus on economic inclusion and poverty reduction, as well as ensuring the region is welcoming to and supportive of all residents. Additionally, included in the aforementioned 311 staff years are 2 new positions in supporting the new Office of Immigrants and Refugee Affairs being heard tomorrow by the board. As part of the Community Action Partnership, we're adding 2 positions to focus on streamlining and leveraging existing programs and benefits for working families. And while almost half of our spending increase, about $105 million on top of the table, is for continued pandemic response efforts covering items such as testing, culturally competent disease investigation, and vaccination efforts, we also have new service investments in all other priority areas. These include efforts to augment behavioral health and public health service delivery infrastructure, to address, very importantly, homelessness and affordable housing, to strengthen children and families, support our seniors, and to meet the growing need for safety net services. And while we are excited about the proposed increases, we know there is a lot more resources being proposed as part of the governor's May revised budget that can come our way to further augment service delivery, especially in the areas of behavioral health and infrastructure, services for children and youth, and importantly, housing and homelessness services. In delivering these services, we'll also break down barriers in our own county workplace to better meet customer needs by expanding mobile services and building out virtual service delivery, telehealth, and video conferencing in a culturally competent manner. Our most vulnerable populations will remain front and center as we address the interconnected issues of homelessness, economic inclusion, criminal justice through our work with our community care coordination and jail medical services, and working in partnership with the public safety group. Agency-wide, we have a strong commitment to addressing racism as a public health crisis, and will continue to build upon a strong foundation of equity for all. Ultimately, we look forward to an innovative and results-driven agenda, a progressive agenda that will equitably reshape the delivery of services to help all San Diegans live well. Thank you for the time. Now I turn it over to my colleague, Sarah Aghassi, who is the Deputy Chief Administrative Officer for the Land Use and Environment Group.
Thank you so much, Nick. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for your time. The Land Use and Environment Group.
Thank you. The Land Use and Environment Group serves our community by preserving the environment, protecting health and safety, and improving the quality of life for the region's
وتحسين نوعية الحياة.
and 35 million yearly visitors.
35 زائر سنويا.
And our team members bring innovation to all that we do. We inspect food facilities, operate at-risk youth programs, monitor water quality on 70 miles of shoreline,
على 70 ميل على طول المحيط.
and ensure consumer protection throughout the region.
تأكدنا من حماية المستهلك على المنطقة مدى
We
المنطقة.
also operate parks and libraries,
وأيضا
maintain county
نخدم
roads.
المكتبات.
Sarah, I don't want to interrupt you. I think there's, hold on one second. I think there's something happening with our interpreter. They're speaking right after you speak and everybody can hear it. So give me 1 second so they can fix it.
No problem, thank you.
Let's try it again, Sarah, and if you hear her, we'll just stop.
Okay, sounds great. All right. We inspect food facilities, operate at-risk youth programs, monitor water quality on 70 miles of shoreline, support the $1.8 billion agricultural industry, and ensure consumer protection throughout the region. We also operate parks and libraries, maintain county roads, regulate land development for the unincorporated community, and protect open space. San Diego's unincorporated area is larger than the states of Rhode Island and Delaware combined. Last year's approved budget helped LUEG achieve meaningful results. This includes protecting the environment, which is one of the pillars of our group services. Our programs limited the amount of waste going into our landfills and reduced greenhouse gases in 2020 equal to emissions of nearly 35,000 passenger vehicles for a full year. We waived $2 million in fees to encourage green building and the use of solar power in our community, which helps the environment and lowers energy costs for our residents. Conserving what we already have in value is also important. We purchased 2,000 acres of land, added to the 380 miles of trails we managed, and made it easier to place farmland into permanent agricultural easements. When it comes to the health and safety of our community, we invested in projects that reduce air pollution, with a special focus on neighborhoods adjacent to heavy industry, including the shipyards along the harbor. We spent $157 million to pave 138 miles of county roadways and improve sidewalks, and regularly inform the public about water quality levels at the beaches and heavily impacted waterways such as the Tijuana River Valley. We also conducted more than 500,000 inspections to make sure the places where you eat and visit are safe and that you receive exactly what you paid for at stores and gas stations. And because not all communities are the same, we provide services with a focus on equity. To make access to the internet more equitable, we extended the 24/7 Wi-Fi signal outside our 20 library branches, and will complete this at all 33 branches this month. To support the new programs and services directed by our Board of Supervisors, we are seeking 3% more staff and 7% more funding next year. LUEG is proposing $104.5 million to advance overall sustainability in meaningful and equitable ways. Our Board of Supervisors has recommended bold steps to tackle climate change, including a new climate action plan that will reduce greenhouse gases and lower the region's carbon footprint. To craft the plan, we will use current data and modeling and view it through a lens of equity and environmental justice. Our climate action plan will not rely on the purchase of carbon offsets and will be shaped by robust community input. This plan will help us meet and exceed our GHG reduction goals by 2030. Our new Office of Environmental and Climate Justice will collaborate with all county departments, the Air Pollution Control District, other jurisdictions and community stakeholders to reduce air pollution emissions and exposure to hazardous waste and advance the bold changes needed to ensure the most heavily impacted individuals in our region have access to environmental and climate equity and justice. In addition to the Climate Action Plan, we will ensure the integrity of local waterways by preventing pollution runoff and continue our daily water quality testing at 9 South County beaches. Soon, we will have the ability to get test results and report them in real time the same day. We will continue to push for tangible solutions as a part of the working group dedicated to resolving the water quality and health crisis at the Tijuana River Valley. And we will also protect agriculture from invasive pests. Collectively, these efforts will reduce our region's carbon footprint and improve our long-term viability for generations to come. To improve quality of life, we will continue to invest in parks and libraries to advance learning and personal development, as well as physical and emotional well-being. This includes continuing our digital literacy classes, teaching English as a second language, and offering materials in many languages. And our commitment to justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion will ensure our services and programs create positive outcomes for all community members. This will deliver improved public health and better outcomes for those disproportionately impacted by environmental burdens and ensure that health disparities, food justice, and infrastructure equity are addressed. We appreciate the opportunity to share what the Land Use and Environment Group does and how we invest the public's money on behalf of our community. Vice Chair Vargas, Jose, and community members, this concludes our budget presentation, and we look forward to the dialogue.
Thank you so much, everyone on the team for your thorough presentation. We're going to go ahead and begin the Q&A portion of the discussion. Somebody asked on the Q&A whether where Rock Mountain was located, and so I explained to them that it's in District 1 in East Otay Mesa, next to the George Bailey facility, and it replaces a South Bay Detention Center facility. There's another person here who is asking about if we can advocate for our seniors and provide an actual monthly card for food. So if I can have someone for the team just kind of share with them some of the work that we're doing around seniors, I think it would be important in the budget.
Vice Chair, this is Nick Macchione. It'll be me at the Health Human Service Agency. So there's quite a bit in the arena. So our Department of Aging and Independent Services, as I mentioned earlier, in the response to COVID, was doing a number of programs to promote. But the reality is, with the Older Americans Act, even before COVID and during COVID, and as we get through COVID, are there supporting our seniors. And so I have Kim Gallo, if I may, who's our director for Aging and Independent Services. If we can, could give us a little brief update on some of the very programs we're doing as it relates particularly to nutritious food and meals. Kim?
Hi, good evening. This is Kim, and we have many programs at AIS for food and nutrition services, primarily through our senior nutrition program, where you can call either 211 or you can call our AIS hotline to find out about those programs, and that is at 1-800-339-4661. And normally, pre-COVID, we were serving approximately 1 million meals a year. Well, this last year, we've served over 4 million meals in various communities throughout San Diego. And in addition to that, we've also been running FEMA's Great Plates Delivered program, where we have over 5,500 seniors that are receiving 3 meals a day throughout the county, resulting in over another 4 million meals that have been served. Also, for seniors who are eligible, they can apply for CalFresh benefits, and they can do that through contacting either 211 or the Access Call Center. And those are some resources that are out there, as well as our food banks and many community supports to provide food during this difficult time. We also have food pantries that are in some of the rural areas on certain days of the week and in different parts. We have San Isidro, and we have some other locations that are in Vice Chair Vargas's district. And so there's a lot of food resources. So if you need information, please call our AIS hotline or 211.
Thank you, Kim. I think she also wanted to know if there was, you know how we have given the cards for the students. I think that's probably what she's referring to. And I know that we are in our ARPA funding, we have requested for direct stimulus funding. So I think that will also be another way where some of the folks who may need access to food or whatever else they may need will be able to use that as well. So señora Delia, la información, ya después si quiere, por medio de la página web de la oficina, supervisoranoravargas.com, le podemos también dirigir a un proyecto de estímulo directo que vamos a poder dar, si pasa mañana, en donde vamos a poderle dar acceso a que tenga recursos directos para poder comprar comida o para pagar su luz o lo que usted necesite si todo sale adelante. Jose, you had a question?
Yes, in fact, I have 3 questions, so I'm going to ask them in a series, and maybe your team can respond to them. The first one, and I'm getting texts from my members, so I don't know why they don't just log on to the Zoom. So here we go. The first one is associated with the large homeless encampment that was on the 805 next to the Plaza Boulevard exit. And all of us who have driven by saw it, witnessed it. There was a large transition of that community that had settled there to other places, but they simply integrated themselves into the National City community. The city of Chula Vista is working on developing a tent of sorts, and they've been waiting for about a year to develop it. So the principal question is, what is the county's role in these significant homeless settlements that are occurring in an ad hoc fashion? And how is the county helping the cities to respond to these crises where cities don't have really the capacity to support? So I'll stop there to see if there's a response from the county.
Thank you, Jose, for that question. This is Nick Macchione. And we have a number of people that want to jump to address that, because it's a real excellent point. And it's one that I think with the vice chair's leadership and actually the chair and the rest of the board have made issues around helping our homeless really the priority. So I'm going to have, it's actually our new department I mentioned, our Department of Equitable Communities and Homelessness that's literally being created. Barbara Jimenez is the director, and working with Barbara is Omar Passons, who's our lead, if you will, for homelessness. And Barbara is our community operations officer. I'm going to turn it, Barbara, to you to share a little bit, having also been the regional general manager for South Bay, and I think has worked very closely in National City and throughout all of South, to Barbara. And then it is one that's just not also around homelessness, is related to the work that we're doing with the different city housing commissions. So David Estrella, our director for housing and community development services, is here too, and may want to add a little bit. But Barbara, I'll turn to you to add, please.
Thank you, Nick. Can you hear me okay? Perfect, thank you. So a couple of things. We've been really fortunate to work with our city partners as it relates to regular outreach happening prior to any sort of cleanup in the community. This involves really ensuring that we can work together to locate shelter, identify what the needs are for all the individuals that are out there providing the services. We offer and work in partnership with, for example, Alpha Project, McAllister, in this case, our National City Police Department Homeless Outreach Team and the county team. We've worked to provide multiple residents of the encampment some self-sufficiency services as well, and looking to ensure that we can help folks find shelter and or connect them to the other resources that are needed. We look forward to continuing to work with the different cities and the different jurisdictions and really focusing on the needs of the community. So I think that I'll turn it over to David for the rest of it. Thank you.
Good evening. This is David Estrella, Director, Housing and Community Development Services, Health and Human Services Agency. The only thing I'd like to add to the discussion, thank you, Barbara, is that our county housing authority is one of 6 local housing authorities. And we administer several programs that we work in conjunction region-wide and with other housing authorities, 2 of them being the No Place Like Home program, which is state funded. It's over $100 million for the development and acquisition and creation of new affordable housing for people that are homeless and need behavioral health services that have serious mental illness. And we also administer the Veterans Affairs Supportive Housing Program. Our department helps almost 700 formerly homeless veterans to maintain their supportive services through the VA and find affordable housing through a voucher. It's very similar to the Section 8 program. So those are 2 examples of programs that assist homeless individuals throughout the region and in partnership with other jurisdictions. So thank you.
Supervisor, your staff has provided a great response. Yet, as a resident of the South Bay, I'm curious if there is I hate to use this language, but a tactic that works on resolving these issues. And I'll just use the National City example again. The issue that happened was the homeless encampment transitioned to the other side of the freeway and to the public parks. And so I just heard your staff describe 2 very important and large programs. And I'm wondering if the outcomes of the programs and the challenge that's ahead before us is not congruent, or is not being set up in such a way to succeed. And I know we can't eliminate the homeless, the challenges we have with the unhoused, but I'm just wondering, I'm expressing a sense of powerlessness in working to support that issue.
Yeah, I mean, I think the way I would respond is that we are, there's, I think, $30 million in funding, is it through ARPA, right? Specifically for mental health. And then we have funding in the budget itself. And so I think what's important is that, these are like sort of short-term solutions to a bigger issue that we must address, which is ensuring that everyone who needs services, the wraparound services and access to housing is part of the bigger answer to this issue. And so I think, we're going to be able to have the mobile, what is it called? The mobile crisis team projects that are going to be able to come also in the South Bay, the crisis response teams. And so I think what we're doing is trying to figure out how do we respond to this holistically. And so, I mean, the reality is that a lot of the folks who are in these unsheltered situations, we are concerned about their personal health, and we want to make sure that they're okay as well. And so I think we're continuing to figure out ways to make sure that they have a place to go and that they actually are going to be safe. And so, we've worked closely with Mayor Solis, particularly in National City around this issue. And I mean, I'm committed to making sure that we not only pour resources, but they're long-term, responses to an issue that's been around. I mean, I think the pandemic really exacerbated, I think, how people the situation that many folks were in. And so I think there is no quick fix. I think it's going to be long-term.
Can I ask my second question?
Of course.
So the second question that Administrator Macchione mentioned that there's 10,000 Section 8 vouchers that are funded. And I guess I'm trying to understand we've all heard of the backlogs in Section 8 list. And I'm wondering if the funding comes from the federal government or the state government, or how do we know as a county that you only need 10,000 vouchers when potentially the need could be much higher? So I'm trying to understand how that works. Thank you.
Yeah, Jose, thank you for your question. Far more need than what we have. And in fact, the Section 8 is HUD program. It's a federal program. But let me turn it to David Estrella, just to quickly talk about how that money comes in, and then what the demand is like, because it's to your point, greater demand than what we have in terms of that federal program. David?
Thank you, Nick. So the funding for the Housing Choice Voucher Program, more commonly known as the Section 8 program, comes from the federal government. Each year we receive an allocation. Our housing authority right now currently administers roughly $180 million for the Housing Choice Voucher Program. We have over 10,000 families, and it's nearly 11,000, truthfully, through our Section 8 program. Our waiting list right now is roughly 30,000 households. And of course, it's very concerning to us. We are limited by the budget that's provided by the federal government. There is an increase that we've seen over the past 2 years in our allocation, although we know that the need is greater than the resources that we have available. The Section 8 program provides a monthly subsidy to participants. It is a very valuable program that we maximize as much as we possibly can using every voucher that we receive, but the need is very great. Did I answer your question, Jose?
Yes, and so is there additional resources in the county to support, with 30,000 households seeking additional Section 8 vouchers, it seems like it's a significant issue that could help support or alleviate further families going to be unsheltered. So I'm wondering if there's a way for the county to...
Oh, that smells fantastic. Oh. Mm.
If you're not speaking, could you go ahead and put yourself on mute, please?
So my question was, is there a way to invest additional resources in those programs, or is there a strategy around addressing housing for families that qualify for Section 8?
So the county adds a variety of funds, a variety of resources here at the local level, extending all the way through vouchers for homeless individuals through the local rental subsidy program. There's money that's made available for the Innovative Housing Trust Fund to develop new units for folks that might be eligible for Section 8. Again, I mentioned the No Place Like Home program. The county's also made available excess county land to be developed for affordable housing. So what that means is the reimagination of former county sites. A former courthouse is now being developed for affordable housing. A former Health and Human Services Agency building being used now for affordable housing. We are one housing authority amongst the 6 housing authorities. So our jurisdiction covers the unincorporated area and all the cities except for the cities of Oceanside, Carlsbad, Encinitas, National City, and the city of San Diego. So there are also very large housing authorities that we work with in our entire region. And our budget this year is a continuation of a variety of resources to assist the population that we're talking about.
And my last question, thank you very much. I know these are really significant challenges, but it is pressing. And it's a significant comment to make that there are 30,000 households waiting. And just like SANDAG coordinates efforts for transportation, I'm wondering if there is a coordinating arm this doesn't require an answer, but some sort of coordinating structure around the 6 housing authorities to prioritize housing for these families in need. Supervisor, I have one last question for your staff. There was a comment in the budget presentation related to broadband around the library system of the county. And this pandemic has really highlighted many things, but the accessibility of broadband specifically for families who needed additional hi-fi access or broadband access for school and homeworks. And so I'm just wondering, just like you promoted the development of the small libraries in the communities, I'm wondering if broadband is a strategy of the county to support families in need.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of what you'll see, there's actually funding that we're requesting in ARPA specifically tomorrow for broadband for the county as a whole. And then there are other initiatives as well as part of it. So I don't know, let me see if I can turn it over so that they can give you an update about where that is.
Thank you, Vice Chair. This is Sarah Aghassi. Yes, Jose, this is one of the priority areas for our board. And as the Vice Chair mentioned, one of the steps will be the ARPA deliberations tomorrow. But our goal is to move forward with a master plan where we're able to evaluate the gaps in services and then to go beyond really the gaps in services in the areas. So what infrastructure is needed, as you've mentioned, Wi-Fi being part of that, fixed wiring being another, and then also the accessibility and affordability being the third portion of that. So as we look at this, and the goal is for us to really have these conversations on a region-wide basis as well, so that as you were mentioning, it's coordinated, not solely for transportation or housing, but then also for broadband, because as you mentioned, we have all realized, certainly more than ever with COVID, that broadband is a necessary and critical infrastructure component for all community members.
Thank you so much. Any other questions from your members, Jose? That you can see, I know there's some questions on the Q&A right now.
I see questions in the Q&A from members.
Okay. There was a question regarding the Tijuana River Valley. As many of you know, the question is, what is the county plan to clean up the Tijuana River Valley? The surrounding areas and residents have suffered environmental justice for years. Little has been done to address the areas that the county has direct responsibility. And so let me start off by saying that it is one of my top priorities. As many of you know, within the first couple of weeks of serving in this role, we declared the Tijuana River Valley a public health care crisis. And so last week we were able to get $10 million from the Conservation Corps to begin that process. And let me turn it over to, I think Deb Mosley can share a little bit more information specifically about some of the long-term projects and short-term projects and how it's also part of our budget process as we're moving forward.
Great, thank you, Supervisor Vargas. My name is Deborah Mosley. I work for the County of San Diego in the Department of Parks and Recreation. And we do have many efforts going on in the Tijuana River Valley to address the pollution issue. The county did lead an effort to complete an evaluation to identify some of the solutions. We did complete that study in 2020, where we identified about 27 projects that would, once implemented, would be able to address the pollution issue on the US side of the border. We've been working to find additional funding to implement some of those projects. And as Vice Chair Vargas just mentioned, we did receive a grant for $10 million from the Coastal Conservancy to address the sediment and trash issues in one of the main drainage areas in the river valley that's called Smuggler's Gulch. And that's about a 3-year project that we will be embarking on and starting now that we've received that grant funding. We also have some efforts in the river valley regarding restoration. And in the budget, there's approximately $500,000 that's included for beach and water quality testing at 9 locations. We're continuing to work with all of our local, state, and federal partners to continue to bring funding in for some of the additional projects that we've identified in that study, such as the treatment facilities that would be able to divert and treat some of the wastewater that's coming across the border. We've been partnering with the EPA to try to bring in some funding to be able to address those issues as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you for that. And one of the questions was if we're working with other colleagues throughout the county, and the answer is absolutely yes. I also formed the South County Environmental Justice Task Force to ensure that we not only have representation from all levels of government, including our local elected officials, but the environmental justice and public health care community is also part of it, so that we are able to together advocate at the national, state level and international level for additional resources, including with NADVAC, et cetera. So excited to be a true partner in this process as we move forward. And thank you, Deborah and the rest of the team. This working group actually meets on a monthly basis, and we are rolling up our sleeves and getting things done. So it's been exciting to see the work moving forward really quickly, including the $10 million that we were able to advocate for on last week. Let's see, during this pandemic, many issues were with internet service, for example, freezing, slow connection or disconnection. What steps will we take to minimize those issues once the county offers broadband? I am assuming that part of what we're doing is we're going to be able to provide some of these programs, and I think we're going to be looking into it to make sure, but is there somebody that can answer this question, Sarah? And there's, I think, 2 questions about, there's 2 questions, there was another question on.
The broadband question from Paula Hall, partnering with school.
Oh, with the schools, yes, yes.
Yes, thank you, Vice Chair. Absolutely, we will be looking at the partnership opportunities. And as part of the master plan and some of the surveys that will be moving forward, we will be working with the school districts and other community members to really identify the needs, and then for all of us to work together on what the solutions would be that will best serve the community.
Sarah, since I have you on, could you share a little bit with folks about how the budget will be addressing climate change? I know that it's one of our priorities. One of the things that I'm really proud of is that we were able to create the Office of Environmental and Climate Justice. And then we're doing a lot of work of sustainability with my colleague, Supervisor Tara Lawson-Remer, and the chair around, an array of issues. And so if you could just kind of brief folks about, specifically in the budget, where we're addressing this issue, please.
Absolutely. Twofold, really, on parallel tracks. One is our existing climate action plan that we have has a number of measures included. Over $100 million in this budget will be going towards sustainability efforts. We have open space acquisitions, tree plantings, installation of solar panels, looking at turning our fleet. I mean, we are one of the largest employers in the region and going to be leading by example in transitioning our fleet into green vehicles. All departments are going through that analysis. We will be implementing teleworking as we come out of the pandemic on a longer basis to reduce our carbon footprint. And then at the same time, as Vice Chair, you mentioned, we also have the framework for the future directions you have provided to us, the Board of Supervisors. We are going to be implementing sustainability plans for all of our county departments, and we will be aligning really with an equity lens, which is the primary area of focus is how do we really address the needs and go census tract by census tract going into our communities to see what the needs are, so that our update to the climate action plan that will also be moving forward this year will really be looking at all of the measures that we put in place through an equity lens and from a justice standpoint. So for the existing climate action plan, because we do not have the luxury to wait for an update. We need to continue to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. We are committed to that as part of this budget. And then we will be going further based on the direction that you and the board have provided us in looking at environmental and climate justice and going further in our decarbonization efforts.
Thank you so much, Sarah. The other one is, let's see, we have that one. Climate change. Ethel, can you, I know Ethel had, is there a limit of how many they can assist? I wasn't sure what she was referring to, so I had kind of probably missed it.
Again,
I'm sorry?
related to the Section 8 housing vouchers.
Oh, okay. Let's see, specifically, are there any plans from the county to address long haul impacts of COVID residents? Nick, who would I?
Yeah, thank you, Vice Chair. I know we have, I'm going to assume it's related to both the health, but also the economic recovery. And I think we're doing a lot on both. But I'll turn to Dr. Wooten. And I know we have Dr. Wooten and Dr. Eric McDonald both, but I'll turn to Dr. Wooten, talk a little bit about the ongoing health programs as it relates to COVID that we're working with our healthcare partners with.
Thank you, Nick. Long haulers condition or long haulers COVID-19 is actually a condition that lasts for weeks to months and sometimes even as long as a year after someone has been officially has been diagnosed with COVID-19. So while they might continue to test negative, they still have the symptoms associated with long haulers. And we have 2 healthcare systems here that are doing, they are treating people with long haulers. Sharp and Scripps have programs, and UCSD may as well. I believe it's UCSD and Scripps. I was recently on a panel with a provider from Scripps that shared that information with the public. So that's what the definition of long haulers is. And our role is to get the word out to the public, to let them know about the resources at UCSD and Scripps so that they can be treated for this unfortunate complication associated with COVID. Dr. McDonald, do you have any additional info? Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Wooten. I do want to share, because I think this is a really important one, particularly the district one. They all are very important questions, but there was a question regarding opportunities to be explored for all kids to have access to affordable childcare. And Alethea, who is leading our efforts, did an exceptional job responding. But if you could just go ahead and share with folks, Alethea, I would really appreciate it. I know that you all are doing a lot of work. There is, I think, $10 million that we're looking at via ARPA tomorrow. And then there's additional funding in the first 5 and also through the governor's budget. But if you can share some, I would really appreciate it, Nick, or.
Sure. Buenas tardes o buenas noches. Hello, everyone. Thank you, Vice Chair Vargas. Definitely, we have been really watching closely what our governor is proposing in terms of our childcare slots and really the advancement or enhancement of the system, and really looking at potentially the state median income requirement going from 8 to 100, which would then create more options for families that are working families. And I did put that in the chat as an answer so folks would be aware of something that's really important. And then I know we are also looking at a proposal for universal TK, which really opens up preschool for, really it's a preschool program for full day, full year for 4-year-olds throughout our state. And so we would aim to benefit in our county, throughout our entire county, for all of our 4-year-olds. Again, looking at some, this would be open to all families, and so there wouldn't be an income requirement with the local school district. You did mention the allocation that we are potentially looking at with our ARPA funding, and we're very excited about that opportunity to activate some funds into our region around childcare vouchers potentially and other supports into the childcare system. I also put that there has been some state extension of the emergency child care voucher for essential workers, families with children with special needs, and other very important categories. And so I typed that into the chat, and I also provided a link for the Spanish and also the English flyer, and that is through Child Development Associates. And I'm hopeful that families that are not aware will help spread the word about these available resources, and really just want to make sure that our families are kept informed. And I appreciate the acknowledgement of what First Five aims to do. We're just really hoping to connect families to healthy development services, making sure that they're connected to quality early learning in their region, and just being a resource in terms of parent education and really the importance of the prenatal to birth to 5 years. So thank you, Vice Chair. I hope that helps our constituents with their answer.
Thank you so much, and thank you for all the great work and leadership around this, because I think particularly for our district, there's a lot of work to be done. Ebony, can you respond to the question related to funding for cultural tourism and economic recovery? Please.
Yes, hi everyone. Ebony Shelton here. We have a couple of programs. We did provide some information in the Q&A as well, but we do have our community enhancement program, which is geared at enhancing tourism here in the region. And the board has, in the upcoming budget cycle, $4.8 million for this program, which will be divided equally amongst the districts. But also I'll note that in tomorrow's ARPA framework, there's an additional $5 million slated for this particular program, which would effectively double the funding for the community enhancement program going forward next week, or excuse me, for next fiscal year. So stay tuned for that particular item.
Thank you. And then Dr. Luke, are you able to answer the question regarding mental health? And let's see, there was a question about the mobile crisis response teams in the South region.
Hi, Vice Chair, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Great. Yeah, actually, I did type in answers so people can read those as well. But we actually, with respect to the county-wide implementation of MCRT, will be starting in South County. So there will be a real focus there, both in National City and Chula Vista. We really appreciate law enforcement from those two cities in particular stepping forward very actively, pursuing this opportunity and being, I would say, great collaborators. So we will look forward to that being kind of the leading edge of our countywide implementation. We'll start operations planning with the new fiscal year and hope to have services up sometime in August.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that. And then the last one, because I know we're hitting our time. Brian, if you could respond to the green spaces question in regarding the South Bay, to expand trails to green spaces in South Bay, please.
Yes, thank you, Vice Chair. Happy to respond to that. Excited that we have actually several large trail projects in the budget next year. We will be adding several miles, probably in future years in the Otay River Valley, but that design for all of those trails will take place as part of this year's budget. We're also completing 3 segments of the Sweetwater Loop Trail, which is a trail that will go all the way around that reservoir. And we will also be completing the final design for the last segment of the California Coastal Trail, so that we'll be ready to construct that in future years as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And with that, I know it's 7:27, so I want to be mindful of time. I want to say thank you to everyone, all of the county team members for joining us today, for answering all these questions. I know many of you had typed them already, but I wanted to make sure we were able to share them with the community directly. As always, you can go to supervisornoravargas.com and feel free to reach out and ask any questions directly there at our District 1 community email. I'm going to ask that we put up that one, I think it was a slide that has information about what the times are next week, so that people can continue to provide input on the budget. It's really important for me that our communities have access. I think we've had a total of 9 or 10 pop-ups in the last week. And then this one was, just a wonderful opportunity to have actually the team from the county join us to provide the information. And so budget hearings are June 14th at 9 a.m. We're also going to have a June 16th one at 5:30 p.m. so that for those folks that, depending on time. And then, we really want your input as we're moving forward with this process. And so with that, I don't know, Jose, if you have anything to say before we go ahead and end our session today.
So Supervisor, I know not a lot of us enjoy video, but video conferencing, but I want to tell you that having access to the county's team and having access to you in this process of engagement is really creating an opportunity to declare that we are engaged and transparent. And I feel closer to the county with this mechanism. And I'm hoping that we can do these kinds of activities forward. I also look forward to the county's leadership as we continue to plan for the reopening, whatever that is going to look like. I just as a resident am experiencing different strategies that are being pursued in the COVID-19 reopening that is coming soon. And I look forward to continuing to have access to your teams to provide information related to how to participate in the reopening. Thank you very much. We really appreciate this connection to the community.
Thank you again, and thank you to every one of the members of Southway Forum. You all stood strong attending and participating today. And I know there's a lot of information, but we're gonna make sure that it's transparent and that all of you hold us accountable as we're moving forward to make sure that our communities are healthier and stronger. So, buenísima, muy buenas noches. Gracias a todos los traductores. Thank you to all the translators as well for being here today and helping us as well. Have a wonderful, wonderful evening, and we'll see you soon.